Alright, I think I'm gonna do I'm gonna do a video on twang. So basically what twang is, and I struggle with the definition slightly from different people, because, I've seen some call it twang, some call it edge, others call it, a pharyngeal voice, witch's cackle, ha ha, sort of, ah, my pretty, that tone. But basically, to me, it's just a bright quality in the voice. There's certain things going on in the vocal tract and all this sort of stuff. But the key point for me is it is vitally important, as far as I'm concerned, in being able to get full voice, chest voice notes above that first break. For men, that'll be about an E4, that sort of pitch range. To get much above that, you will have to learn to not narrow the sound, you have to emphasize that quality. Basically, the key to vocal range, in all of its different forms, be it falsetto, full voice, whatever, you have to get that bit whinier as you go higher and higher, just little bits. And it's especially tricky around that, first break area through the, E4, to A4, you hear how twangier it gets, for want of a better word. You hear how whinier it gets. I'm not approaching it with a big, heavy, bottom-end tone. To stay in that full voice coordination, things have got to happen. And I don't think it's important to dive too far into the details of, the CT muscle and the TA need to, and all this stuff. The point is there's a balance. There's a coordination for each different note, and you can get them in different ways. But if that twangy sound, that really, like a quack, like a duck quack. Pavarotti described it like that to one student I saw in a masterclass or something, and it's a pretty apt summary of what the sound is like. And there's a video I saw. I wish I could remember the name. I'll post the link below. If I get permission, I'll post the link below so you can check it out. But imitate Chris Rock, all that sort of whiny, blah, blah, sort of sound. It's attacky, it's abrasive, it's not musical until you've gotten the hang of it, and you learn to rein it in and use it. And it gets more and more important the higher up you go. When you get to about high C, and I won't do a demo of that, I can't do that straight from cold. Not while sounding good, anyway. I give it a go. Woo! Yeah. Yay! So, you hear how narrow it gets, And it's not brilliantly full or nothing. It's not an incredible example of like an operatic full voice, but it's definitely not a pure falsetto. And it's definitely not more the reinforced falsetto type sound, that which is cackle, which would be more that sort of thing. So, yeah, basically, be aware of the amount of twang it will take to get a note to work. And especially in regards to consistency with your singing. Like when I'm singing songs and stuff, because the more I'm working on that sound, the more capable I'm getting of doing the fuller, shoutier sounds lower down from where I'm working. I'm doing a lot of work around high C and above, trying to get that area smoothed out, because it seems to have a real application to making that twang very dominant in my voice. So when I'm approaching my mid-range, it's a very different coordination on each note, from E, I think that's an E, to, say, a G, it's a difference of about 3 notes, but it's drastic. You hear how narrowed it gets, how much thinner, how much more there is to the sound, that brightness, that quality, and it gets way more like it the higher up you go. Until you basically just end up in a reinforced falsetto sound. You're always going to be in some variation of that above high C. So I really recommend working that tone. I recommend working it a lot if you're really struggling with range. And I remember it wasn't too long ago, because when I was training, I've been singing for about 12 years now. And for 10 or 11 of those, I did see changes in my voice. It did develop differently in that. I learned to do grit with falsetto, which does that whole Brian Johnson AC/DC thing, and that works on high songs. When you bring it down, it doesn't sound so good. You take that sort of, it'll be a good sort of song to demo it. Like Thunderstruck is a typical one I did, B to D sort of range. That was cold! That sort of thing. Again, it's not good demos. Don't take it as serious singing, but grit, falsetto, it works up there. Bring it down to the lower notes, like the A above middle C. Woo! You try that. It's no good. It just sucks ass for doing any serious singing. So it's very important, like I say, build the twang. That's what will bridge the gap from your falsetto to your full voice. It works really well. It will make your voice more consistent, so long as the twang stays dominant. If you're working your mid-range and stuff, and you're trying to get beltier, shoutier types of sounds, by all means work on those, but be aware, like with myself as a prime example, if you work the heavy sounds too much, it's almost like you have to try to push up and muscle through notes in your range, as opposed to letting the lighter coordination pull the notes up. It's a very different feel for me. And it all depends on how you want to sing as well, you know. Obviously, my advice won't apply to anyone. I'm particularly a rock guy. The reinforced falsetto sound can cut it a lot, you know. But not in the mid-range. You do need some control there. But yeah, like I was saying earlier, I really struggled because even though I was making progress as a singer, I wasn't making progress in the way I wanted. My mid-range was inconsistent as hell. Especially in a live setting, it was a trouble, because live, you know, in crappy pubs, you'll tend to have poor monitors, and the guitar's too loud. Whoops. But yeah, the drum cymbals you can't get away from, so you'll tend to push with whatever's the strongest gear you've got. Typically, for men more so than women, because there's more, you know, vocal cord there, you'll be more dominant with the lower sounds, with the chest voice sort of, sound. I think it's called overdrive by CVT's term, which just means a dark, heavy sound. That operatic type of sound, that's what it is. So yeah, I become incredibly dominant with that, to the point where I actually lost range. You know, I lost quite a bit of range. I couldn't even sing in my chest voice anymore. When I first started 12 years ago, I started with Green Day songs. That was all I could find in a rock type field that I could sing. I had a limited range. I had a range up to about an F sharp at a push. Took me months of singing to get it above that. But yeah, so doing a song like Boulevard of Broken Dreams, I don't know what the key is, but the verse, just the verse was tricky for me. The I walk alone, and then the D sharp on Lee, I'd just break. I'd pop completely. I'd crack apart. I would sound like a pubescent boy. And the bits below it would feel wobbly as well, because my voice was that imbalanced. Certain muscles, and I can never remember the names, I don't think it matters, but the point is the bright sound wasn't dominant enough to carry the weight I'd developed. Which means there's a massive imbalance, and you're going to get cracks and breaks. And then you get to the chorus, which was, you know, F above middle C, which is the first break. It's high for a lot of people. I just couldn't sing that, and I could sing it to begin with, when I started 12 years ago. Granted, it didn't sound good, but I could attempt it. And I got to the point a year and a half ago, where I just couldn't attempt this stuff. So, to correct that, I spent a lot of time working this twang sound, because I figured it was, before I started getting into the CVT terms and that, I realized it was some sort of imbalance. There was too much weight there, preventing the chords coming together or stretching out, whatever it is, I couldn't make the notes happen. I had all this weight, and it was causing a massive imbalance. So I started working the twang stuff, and I worked it in falsetto, because it's a light coordination. It minimizes the activation of those lower frequencies. It allows you to strengthen the notes and the muscles, I guess, the coordinations and everything, that will allow you to get high notes. And so I started with Bee Gees stuff in more or less a reinforced falsetto. You know, a song like You Should Be Dancing. You know, you just take that first verse. My baby moves at midnight. Not pretty, you know, not a good sound. Maybe if you're into Bee Gees, but most people don't want to sound like Barry Gibb, which is understandable. So I took that, I worked on it and developed it till I got comfy with that stuff. And then I started transitioning into slightly heavier coordinations, and rock is brilliant for this. Because just having that wailing, piercing sound and enough chord closure, all that stuff to give it some meat, works really well. Axl Rose, prime example. I used some of that stuff, but typically I used high songs, and I found more of those with Judas Priest, where he doesn't come down through the mid-range. Because Rob Halford, he was never good with the mid-range, and it's why he sounds a bit funny now doing stuff, even though he's not that different from how he used to be. His screams are still golden, which says it all. Up top, he's laughing. In the middle, sounds like a grandma. But yeah, so I took that kind of reinforced falsetto sound and started to try to not drag up, but lean in some of that chest voice feel. So you'd go from a ah to a ah, you know, you get that presence, that weight to it. And then I worked that up high, you know, sort of strengthening the top end of my range. Brought it down, and it slowly made those A notes in the middle, that mid-range, the really tricky bit, it's made it more and more accessible. And I'm finding that working with closed vowels recently, which is where you don't get carried away with the mouth position, you don't strain too much, it keeps the sound under control, that forces me to keep it bright and keep working it. So, in short, what I recommend for developing range, whatever you do, exercises, songs, whatever, be aware of the sound colors you can do. I highly recommend looking up CVT's terminology for this stuff. But the big one to be aware of is twang or edge. That bright, whiny sound. It's not a musical thing. It won't sound brilliant right off the bat, and you'll probably struggle to do it to a fair degree. It's quite intense. Quite tiring on the voice. Excuse me. But yeah, so give it a try. Like I say, you're aiming to build that sound and gradually work in more and more weight. And you want this twang dominant enough in your range that you can comfortably get the highest notes you want to be able to get. And then work down. Start with that light sound, work down. Do whatever. Try it all, try sirens. Like I used to do a lot of siren work, Jamie Vendera's program was great for that. It recommends it a lot. I think Robert Lunty's recommends it, but I can hear the weaknesses in their voices because they don't work these different sounds so much. As far as I'm aware, anyway. They don't emphasize these sounds. Jamie Vendera certainly didn't when I bought his program, but he's on number 3 now, the 3rd version, so maybe he does now. I don't know, but these are really important for developing your range. Let's say when you're doing sirens, don't just start loud, try to push that meat up. I would suggest starting high and working your way down. So middle C, yay, as opposed to yeah, work the bright sound. It's okay to add weight when you can, but be aware that singing is a constant battle for balance between these different groups of muscles, these different coordinations. You need the higher sounds to dominate if range is your goal. And obviously, bear in mind what range you want, what way you want to sing, what tones you want, because developing the shouty sounds is important as well, but they're not going to happen consistently or reliably, or even powerfully, without this twang. The more of that bright sound you develop, the better off your voice will be in the long run, because it's what makes range happen. Again, just as an example, that A note where things are really tricky, woo, mid-range, it's a bastard to navigate round. It's vital to get those bright sounds dominant there, that your voice can float through it quickly and easily to be able to sing actual songs and not just doing sirens. So again, start on the notes, work down, yay! Yay! And you can hear how it gets whinier and whinier each note up. Yay! 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 You can hear I'm starting to mix back a bit. Part of that is not being warmed up. Gets easier when you warm it up, get these sounds pretty dominant. Like above high C, I struggle a bit to demo that stuff. I normally end up in a gritty falsetto. But when I warm up a bit, those muscles get kicked on a bit more, whatever you want to call it. They activate more. It's easier to be in an edge dominant sound. And from there, I can vary the tone up. My range is more consistent. It's smoothed out. It's easier to sing. Just feels easier, It's less effort to get it to go. But yeah, that's about it. Like I say, if you want range, you've got to work that sound to some degree. Do it in whatever way you're comfortable. The reinforced falsetto exercises, let's say that witch's cackle, that stuff, 80s rock cheesiness is brilliant for developing that sound and especially developing it above the first break. So give that sound a try, work your exercises, and again, work it from top to bottom. It means you will have to get the notes in a brighter type of way. It will eliminate the tendency for you to try pushing from the bottom and dragging a sound up. I did that for years, right? And it meant that I had notes some days and they were completely gone the others. Sometimes a high C would be easy, other times wouldn't be able to get above an E. And that wasn't just because my voice was tired. The balance is always rebalancing in the voice. You have to make sure that the twang stays dominant, and if you haven't got much in your voice, work on it. It will pay off drastically. Yeah, that's about it. Again, Wang. Get it to go, see how it works. I hope that helps, and I'll catch you next video. Bye!